Hi, everyone. I'm Phil Lipoff. Thanks so much for streaming with us. It was not the merriest of Christmases for thousands of airline passengers. Roughly 3,800 flights canceled since Christmas Eve alone. Carriers blaming the spread of Omicron for creating staffing shortages in the airline industry. Omicron also created an unprecedented demand for testing, resulting in long lines nationwide. We're going to have more on that for you in just a moment. But first, the jury weighing fraud charges against former Theranos CEO Elizabeth Holmes has begun their second week of deliberations. Holmes faces 11 criminal charges, alleging that she duped investors and patients by saying her company's blood testing technology was a medical breakthrough. Prosecutors say that was not the case. We are also monitoring jury deliberations in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. The British socialite faces charges alleging she recruited and groomed teenage girls for financier Jeffery Epstein to sexually abuse over a 10-year period. Maxwell turned 60 on Christmas Day while spending time behind bars. Both Holmes and Maxwell are maintaining their innocence. We will, of course, bring you the verdicts in both of these trials when they happen. And there was no Christmas miracle for Powerball players out there. Sorry. For the 34th straight time, there was no big winner, bringing the jackpot now to $416 million. For tonight's drawing, there were $1 million winners in California, South Carolina, and Tennessee. That is a pretty nice Christmas present. The odds of hitting all 5 numbers in the Powerball, by the way, 1 in 292 million. So we could be waiting a while for the next big winner. Now to the fight against COVID-19. More essential workers are calling out over the holidays as Omicron spreads and cases continue to surge. We are also seeing a striking increase in children being hospitalized with COVID. Trevor All with the latest.
The Omicron surge piling up new cases through the holidays, leading experts to warn that even if this variant proves to be more mild, its sheer transmissibility could seriously overload hospitals. Testing lines in cities from every region of the country stretching blocks as the virus spreads, caseloads soaring past the Delta peak, even as many Americans say they have to search relentlessly to even find a test, some showing up well before sunrise.
CVS, Walgreens, all those were booked out, and honestly, this is a last resort. I will come here 3 o'clock if I really had to.
In Florida, where they've broken their record-high daily infection total on back-to-back days, this Orlando testing site reached capacity 9 straight days heading into Christmas, and Sunday, crowds back out once again.
We just got back from a plane, and everybody was coughing, so we really want to see if we have COVID or not.
And in New York State, the health department has warned pediatric hospitalizations have increased 4-fold, saying bluntly, the risks of COVID-19 for children are real.
That is why, it's so important for those that are eligible and around, especially our children under 5 who are yet to get the vaccine, to be vaccinated, to really cocoon them, protect them, especially as we're entering this surge.
And Omicron is creating staffing shortages. 19% of New York City EMS workers called out on Christmas. That's several times more than usual.
And professional sports leagues are having to adjust as well. The NHL has now postponed all the games that were scheduled to be played tonight, and the NBA is requiring every team to hold a booster shot event for their players, as 97% of NBA players are fully vaccinated, but a third of them have not received a booster. Phil?
Trevor, thank you. Another industry affected by the latest COVID outbreaks, cruise ships. Some ships are actually returning to port after being refused permission to dock at their scheduled stops. Victor Akendo with the latest.
A holiday travel nightmare at sea. At least 4 cruise lines reporting COVID breakouts on board. The wave fueled by Omicron. Passengers left isolating and ships now bypassing popular destinations.
It was disgusting. Nobody cared. And now I have to worry that I'm going to have COVID.
In San Diego, Holland America cruise ship Koningsdam returning to port after being denied entry to Puerto Vallarta by Mexican authorities.
We had our excursion all planned. We were waiting for about an hour to get off. They kept saying, we're delayed, we're delayed, we're delayed. And finally, the captain got on and said, we're leaving in an hour.
According to the Mexican Ministry of Health, when the vessel arrived in Mexico, 21 crew members tested positive for COVID. Holland America responding to ABC News, saying in part, No guest presented as positive. With the pervasive nature of the Omicron variant, we have continued to evolve our protocols, which were developed with guidance from leading health experts and in anticipation of situations like this. The same ship sailing off again on another voyage just hours after passengers disembarked. In Miami, Carnival Freedom, a ship on an 8-day voyage, returning to its port after what passenger Ashley Peterson described as traveling in a petri dish.
With the high number of COVID cases on board, they're not able to really contain it being on a small ship. It's really the worst kind of travel that you can do. I mean, it's not safe at all.
The vessel denied entry to Aruba and Bonaire due to infected passengers on board. Many passengers upset with Carnival over its communication.
They didn't inform us of hardly anything. We sat there for a couple of hours, and then we found out they wouldn't let us on that destination because of so many people on the ship having COVID.
Carnival telling ABC News their vigorous COVID protocols account for the possibility of any positive cases on board, and that they also made announcements and communicated in writing to guests on board. The cruise industry crushed by the pandemic, shifting protocols and setting strict rules for sailing in order to prevent the spread of COVID. But this current trend of outbreaks has the CDC monitoring closely. The CDC creating this color-coded chart system on its site of 108 current cruise ships operating or planning to operate in U.S. waters. Green being no reported cases, and red is defined as a ship having, quote, sustained transmission of COVID-19 or potential for COVID-19 cases to overwhelm onboard medical center resource.
So far, we're talking about a relatively small number of infections on board. Take the Royal Caribbean Symphony of the Seas, for example. They reported less than 1% of everyone on board testing positive.
All right, Victor Oquendo, thank you so much. Joining us now to help us understand this new surge, where we're headed, the difficulties that Omicron poses, is Chief Innovation Officer at Boston Children's Hospital and ABC News medical contributor, Dr. John Brownstein. Dr. Brownstein, thanks so much. Hope you had a good holiday weekend.
Thanks so much, Phil. Hope you did too.
We appreciate you being here. Well, people nationwide gathered to celebrate the holidays, Christmas this past weekend. On Thursday, the U.S. averaged nearly 161,000 new daily COVID cases. That is up 36% from the previous week. If you find out right now that you were in close contact with someone who had COVID, and so many people are doing that, especially after this weekend, what should you do, and how does your reaction differ if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated?
Yeah, you know, Phil, this is the message that I got all day long, every day throughout the holidays. You know, so many exposures, so many unique situations, a lot of anxiety. The reality is it is different if you're vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Unvaccinated, a person needs to quarantine for 14 days. You know, local guidelines might change that to about 10 days or 7 days with a negative test. But, you know, you really need to go right into quarantine immediately after that exposure. If you're vaccinated, you know, and you don't have symptoms, you don't have to quarantine according to CDC, but you should be getting tested a few days later. And remember, if you do have symptoms, go right into quarantine as well. And a test may not show up as positive for a few days. So even if you get that rapid test immediately, you're negative, but you have symptoms, you should be considering yourself quarantine and isolating until you get, you know, additional testing done. We just all have to do our part to reduce transmission. This is a very fast moving variant. So whatever we can do in terms of limiting mobility, masking, social distancing, this is how we're going to get through the next 3 weeks.
So we know that it's a fast-moving variant. There's some data that suggests it may not be as severe as Delta. You know, sort of the jury's still out on that right now. But this is what everybody wants to know, and they did with Delta. They do now. Is there any clear data that tells us how long people are contagious? You know, when you get it, are you contagious just before? Your symptoms? What's the data show us?
You know, this is really challenging. Obviously, with a new variant, there's different metrics, but different people will be contagious for different times, and this will change based on variant. It's not clear cut. It depends on your immune system's ability to clear the virus, that timing, and it depends on if you were vaccinated or previously infected. It could be a matter of 2 days. It could be 5. rarely 10. I think we're going to see changes in isolation guidelines because of that. Data suggests that with Delta variant, you have a shorter contagious period. I'd assume with Omicron, it's even shorter. But the only way to know is through testing and making sure that you get an understanding of whether you're positive or negative, and doing that multiple times, because a rapid test tells you whether you're contagious now, but it doesn't necessarily tell you if you're contagious tomorrow.
And so the things we know are one thing. We know Omicron is spreading very fast, faster than Delta, but the unknown, I think, scares a lot of people. The shortage of testing is a major issue for this country right now. We saw fighting in Bushwick, Brooklyn at a test distribution site up in Westchester. We know that a site ran out of tests in 47 minutes, so someone standing in line an hour before they opened couldn't even get a test. As an epidemiologist, what are your thoughts on this shortage right now? You heard the Biden administration say 500 million free tests are coming, but it's not soon enough, right? We should be testing everybody right now whenever they need it.
Frankly, we should have been better prepared for this. We knew a new variant was going to emerge. We knew testing was our sort of ticket out of the pandemic, and we were caught flat-footed again. Testing is now a bottleneck. And so the challenge really now is, how do we get people to test and understand whether they're infected so they can isolate? So unfortunately now, if you don't have access to a test but you have symptoms, you should consider yourself positive until you finally can get that test. Rapid tests are going to be super critical to basically helping deal with that sort of load of testing that's out there. But for now, if you don't have a test, just assume that you need to quarantine until you get that access.
Well, you mentioned the type of test. Let's talk about that for a minute. Explain the difference for us between PCR and rapid antigen tests, and whether one might be better than the other, and does it depend on the situation? There's obviously a lot of confusion about this, and with the testing shortage, what you can actually get your hands on.
I know, and whatever test you can get is better than nothing. PCR is the gold standard, but remember, PCR gives you an indication if you're pre-contagious, contagious, and post. So while it's a very sensitive test, the rapid tests are super critical because they can tell you right now whether you're contagious. Oftentimes, PCR tests only tell you too late about whether you may have had virus before. The rapid test can be really useful right now, especially if you're gathering or going on a flight. Try to get access to those, but yes, the PCR test is especially the gold standard to know whether you've been exposed to this virus, and potentially early on in the infection period.
A couple of questions for you here on kids. Earlier this month, the American Academy of Pediatrics reported that COVID cases among children are extremely high. This is sort of a twofold question. First of all, does that surprise you? Because with more cases, one would think that, yeah, more people are going to show up in hospitals, including children. Or is there something Omicron is targeting in children?
We don't yet know whether Omicron specifically is more severe in kids. We don't necessarily think so. Remember, it's still a large chunk of our population that's unvaccinated is our kids. About only a third of kids under the age of 18 are vaccinated. So that's our vulnerable age group right now. And so unfortunately, with a very fast moving virus, our kids are going to be vulnerable. And especially those under 5 who have yet to be to access the vaccine, we have to be incredibly concerned. And yes, that's why we're going to see that increase in kids. That's why it's so important for the adults and older kids to be vaccinated around them, cocoon them, make sure that they're protected, do whatever we can to keep masking, social distancing, avoid large crowds, especially as we're in the middle of this surge.
All right, and just finally, looking at South Africa and other areas across the globe that have faced this Omicron surge, when can we expect to see these numbers subside? And are we watching other countries to see that, or might we not be following in their footsteps?
Well, I think it's sort of a double-edged sword. On one hand, you do want to look at South Africa, and they experience a rapid increase and a rapid drop. But we look different. We have different demographics. We're in the middle of a Delta surge. When Omicron came, we have mobility with the holidays. So I don't want to hang our hats on what happened in South Africa. In the UK, we're still seeing increases. So our context is different. It is great to see, that this virus could spread quickly and move along. That's what we hope, but we shouldn't plan for that. We could still deal with a significant surge, especially as we're entering the New Year's period. A lot of people gathering. That does create a little bit of a concern for multiple super spreading events in the coming weeks.
Dr. John Bronstein, thanks so much for your expertise. Seems like every time we talk to you, we feel just a little bit better about what's going on around this country and around the world. We do appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Phil. You too.
All right, now to that dangerous blast of winter. Parts of the Pacific Northwest stretching right into the Midwest are under winter storm advisories right now. Warnings as heavy snow and frigid temperatures settle in. Our Matt Gutman is in Truckee, California with more.
Millions across the West hit by that dangerous winter blast, closing out the holiday weekend. Weather alerts in effect all the way from the Pacific coast to the Great Lakes. Heavy snowfall, piercing temperatures, and strong winds slamming states from California to Oregon to Colorado.
Took about 2 hours to clear this.
Seattle blanketed by a rare snowfall up to 6 inches Sunday, just the third time the Seahawks ever hosted a game in the snow.
Perfect weather for a football game.
Dangerous driving conditions shutting down roads and stranding drivers in the thick snow.
I don't know how they're going to get them up.
How was it traveling around?
It was awful.
Over the weekend, a 70-mile section of Interstate 80 linking Reno, Nevada to Sacramento closed in both directions with whiteout conditions. Unrelenting snowfall here in the Tahoe area since Tuesday. Hundreds stranded on the roads, some cars abandoned.
This near-record snowfall here has been so intense, so heavy, it's basically buried trucks like this one. In fact, there's been so much snow, and it's been so hard to get to some of these resorts that a lot of the ski resorts in this area just haven't opened up today.
Placer County Sheriff saying the conditions have been so brutal, they temporarily called off a search for a skier who went missing Saturday at a ski resort near Truckee. The storm expected to continue dumping snow through the day in California's mountainous regions.
Matt Gutman from Truckee, California. Matt, thank you. Coming up, we are remembering Archbishop Desmond Tutu. More on the tributes pouring in from across the globe when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. Tributes continue to pour in from all over the world for Desmond Tutu, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, passed away over this past weekend at the age of 90. He was the voice of faith and moral courage in the long campaign to end apartheid in South Africa. Senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell has more.
It was Desmond Tutu's faith that gave him the strength to tackle the racist apartheid system in South Africa with a message of non-violence.
Our march to freedom is unstoppable.
Tutu grew up under the oppression of segregation, violently enforced by the white minority government. But against the odds, becoming the first black Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town, as South Africa teetered ever closer to the brink of civil war. Tutu stood shoulder to shoulder with Nelson Mandela on a mission to end apartheid. The campaign for economic sanctions and his lobbying for divestment picking up support around the world, including the US. Students at major universities protested, demanding their institutions stop investing in companies with financial ties to South Africa. It helped cripple the apartheid economy and made reform inevitable. His life's work would earn him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984. Tutu used religion to unify people of all faiths with a message of shared humanity, preaching kindness and forgiveness. Even amidst the darkness of apartheid, his sermons and speeches spread a message of love, joy and laughter. Tutu sought to fight injustice in all its forms, speaking to Robin Roberts in 2007 on its most silent kind.
What do you see right now as the biggest challenge that we have to overcome?
Poverty. Poverty is so demeaning. It is so dehumanizing. And we say, hey, when are we going to get it? We don't get it, do we? I mean, that is so obvious. We've got the capacity to feed everybody.
His tireless advocacy for peace touching generations, transcending religion. At the age of 76, he continued to be a force, leading a mission to war-torn Darfur.
What do you hope to accomplish there?
We want to say to them, in a way, what do you want to be remembered for? Do you want to be remembered for as someone who actually assisted in the destruction of so many people? Or do you want to leave a legacy? And I think, that most human beings, most human beings want to be remembered for good things.
Today, spiritual and world leaders remembering Tutu for his global impact and his kind heart.
Desmond Tutu possesses that sense of generosity, that spirit of unity, that essence of humanity that South Africans know simply as Ubuntu.
Phil, it's worth remembering this morning that the embrace of the anti-apartheid movement really was a groundswell of popular opinion. It's something that helped create pressure for change. Many political leaders in America and here in Britain, not least Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, actively supported the racist governments, fearing that communism was a greater threat. But it was leaders like Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela who really inspired people to bring about change. Phil?
Ian Panel, thank you. What a spectacular and impactful life. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We are taking a look at the biggest moments over the past 12 months. From news to entertainment, Juju Chang has a preview of tonight's special, The Year with Robin Roberts.
I got my driver's license last week.
For most of us, getting our driver's license meant breaking free. For breakout pop star Olivia Rodrigo, it means breaking records.
Maybe I'm too emotional.
Her rise to fame may have been fueled by her own teenage heartbreak, but the relatable emotion kicked her career into overdrive and has her nominated for 6 Grammys, including Best New Artist.
This has been the most magical year of my life, and it is all because of you guys, so thank you so much.
It's safe to say 2021 was good for Olivia Rodrigo. Was it? Doja Cat had us seeing stars this summer when she dropped her album Planet Her, and her hit Kiss Me More became an instant earworm.
I never thought I'd be dressed as a worm while accepting an award.
You never know what you're going to get with Doja Cat, but that's part of the allure of Doja Cat. I mean, people are obsessed with her.
But in 2021, the lady leading the powerhouse pack...
I know it ain't the stallion. You know it's your girl.
Glamour Magazine's Woman of the Year, Megan Thee Stallion.
I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet.
The fact that Meg Thee Stallion, won a Grammy with Beyonce solidifies you in music history.
If you know me, you have to know that ever since I was little, I was like, you know what? One day, I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna be like the rap Beyonce. My mama will always be like, Megan, what would Beyonce do?
No one has gone from where she started, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, to literally the top of the world in such a complete way.
And the CMA Award for New Artist of the Year goes to Jimmy Allen.
After 10 years of being here, living in my car, living in the trailer, working every job, this is amazing.
And not only has he broken through in the world of country music, but Jimmy was recently nominated for the 2022 Grammy Award for Best New Artist.
You know, I'm surrounded by people that work hard day in and day out to take all of my dreams, all of my ideas, and make them a reality in the midst of them being told by people that the ideas we have will never work. But here we are, and they worked.
And freedom was a highway. Freedom was a highway.
Juju Chang, thank you so much. It was quite a year. The annual 2-hour primetime special, The Year with Robin Roberts, premieres tonight at 9, 8 Central on ABC, and you can stream it the next day on Hulu. I'm Phil Lipoff. Thanks so much for streaming with us. The news continues with more context and analysis here on ABC News Live.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.